It's another cold day on the farm. It's January 2nd. It is a freezing day. It's about 20 degrees right now. The ground is frozen, and we have gotten delivery, that doesn't make sense. We have taken delivery of 330 tons of mushroom compost. Here where I live in southeastern Pennsylvania, we're kind of considered, or southeastern Pennsylvania, specifically Kennett Square, that area is considered the mushroom capital of the world. There is an insane amount of mushroom houses, and the byproduct of that is mushroom compost or mushroom dirt, mushroom manure, whatever you want to call it. But it is a manure, an organic manure that is widely used on hayfields. If we take a close look at this stuff, you can see kind of the hay and the straw. Sometimes you'll see wood chips and some branches, that sort of stuff. Here's a different kind of form of it. You can see there's a lot of organic carbon material in there, and it contains a lot of nutrients, you know, specifically potassium. That's kind of one of the big ones, but trace amounts of a lot of other stuff and an insane amount of carbon. One of the things that we're trying to focus on this year, as far as our fertility plan goes, is carbon. We're really trying to focus on carbon this year. You know, how can we cut our commercial fertilizer costs in half and see better yields? And so one of those things that we realized, and I learned at a meeting here recently, is a term called WEOC, which is water exchangeable organic carbons. And basically it's a measurement of the carbon in your soil. I don't know all the sciencey terms. I don't know how to explain it in sciencey terms, but basically how it works is the more carbon that's in your soil, the better available nutrients are. And the more basically you're giving your plants and your soil more power to convert nutrients and make them available and use them and utilize them, and it makes everything just more efficient. So that's kind of how it made sense to me. They show data points that, you know, hey, you know, if your WEOC levels are building, you're cutting your inputs in half and your yields are rising. That's what they were showing us. And so that's kind of something that we're going to try to focus on here this year. This is a 22-acre farm, and so 330 tons divided by 22 acres, it comes out to around 15 ton of the acre. And that's what we're shooting for to put down on this farm. We are going to put 15 tons of this stuff on the hayfields. The hayfields look pretty good. Like, they do not look bad at all, as you can see. I mean, there's good grass, there's good alfalfa in here. They look good. They look really good, but we're trying to maintain that good yield, that good looking hayfield. And instead of, you know, getting a cart of potash and a bunch of, you know, commercial fertilizers and spreading that, I want to use something that's organic. I want to use something that is going to get put down on the soil, and it's going to benefit the plant and the soil and the whole ecosystem, rather than me just putting a pellet of fertilizer down and, you know, feeding one thing. Now, yes, commercial fertilizer has its place. It does. There are times where, you know, maybe you just need one pass of potash or something, or, you know, we still have to use a lot of nitrogen, that sort of thing. You know, commercial fertilizer has its place, but here on our farm, you know, we're doing hay. Hay just gobbles up manure, any kind of manure. And so if I can put some manure down and push yields on my farm, then heck yeah, I'm gonna do that. We put 8 ton of the acre of this stuff 2 years ago, and our first cutting it exploded. And last year we didn't put anything down, and we still had really good yields. And now this year we're putting 15 tons down, and I'm hoping to see some real results this year, but hopefully also long-term results as we work on building the carbon in our soil, our WEOC levels, build some organic matter in our soils. I'm hoping to see long-term benefits, not just year-to-year benefits like you're seeing with commercial fertilizers. So I'm just waiting for the opportunity to bring a spreader down here. I'm going to be using my boss's spreader again, and he lets me use it when he's not using it. So it's cold, it's frozen right now. Probably won't get around to it this week, but maybe next week or the next cold snap, when the ground freezes up again, we'll get to spreading this stuff. I do also have another massive pile at another farm. The farm that we made the junky hay that almost burnt my barn down. Yeah, that farm. I was actually over there the other day. That field that made the terrible hay is finally coming through, and it looked really good. We sprayed that farm for weeds, we limed it, and then we're also going to put 15 tons of compost down. And then in the spring, we're going to put 50 units of nitrogen down on it. It's going to make a freaking pile of hay. I'm excited. We're going to have a lot of hay next year. And the barn this year was full enough. So there is no telling what next year is going to be like. Well, it's another day of odds and ends to do on the farm. We're gonna get the sprayer out and we're gonna back the truck in, or my pickup truck, because I have got a set of spacers to put on this thing. 2-inch spacers right here, front and back. The truck kind of looks like it's on stilts when you look at it from the front, so I just wanted a little bit of something to stance it out. Nothing crazy, no crazy offset wheels, nothing wild. I want to try to keep it looking stock, but just stanced out a little bit more. As far as the sprayer, I ordered all of my remaining parts, so I did pick up some EPDM hose, and then I ordered all of my nozzles and brackets and everything that I need to put the final bit together, and then hopefully we can get this thing running. The only thing I haven't ordered that I need to get is I just need to get rid of this T-fitting. I just got to run out to the hardware store and get a piece of pipe or something to run from here to here, get rid of this T-fitting, or just something to block that off. I did the 3 others off camera just to figure out what I was doing, and I already loosened these lug nuts with a breaker bar. Now I have the socket. It's a 22mm socket on the impact. Again, they are already broken. As you can see, they're loose. I'm just zipping them off with this, and yes, I'm using a chrome socket on an impact. And the wheel is stuck on there pretty good. Take a dead blow. Just like that. The wheel is off. Now as I'm taking the wheels off, I'm hitting them with some wheel cleaner on both sides. Very basic. I'm not doing any scrubbing or anything. I'm just trying to get some brake dust off while I have the wheels off. This is not a show truck, so keep that in mind. I'm not building a SEMA truck here. This is my farm truck that I also daily, so I'm trying to keep it somewhat nice, but again, I use it on a daily basis for farm things, so I'm not going to put the elbow grease into it that I would for, say, a show truck. So I'm just hitting it with some wheel cleaner. They don't look very pretty on the inside. Eventually we will polish the outside. That is on my list of things to do. But while I have the wheels off, we're just going to give it a quick rinse. As you can see, a little rough looking on the inside, but we're not making a show truck. The other side, however, looks a little bit nicer. Like I said, we will polish these eventually. The spacers we are using are Titan spacers. I will put a link to the exact ones in here. They make a lot of spacers for like a ton of vehicles, but anyway, these are the ones that I got. I should have taken a picture of the front ones, but these are what are called hub centric spacers. So as you can see, this is the front spacer right here, and you can see how they're, I don't know if you can tell, but there's a lip right here. Okay, so the wheel is seated actually behind this tiny little lip. And there's a lip that goes all the way around, and that keeps these front wheels centered to the hub, and they're called hub-centric spacers. The back ones do not have that lip. They are flat. These are called lug-centric spacers, I believe. I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know all the scientific stuff behind it or really why they do it, but hub-centric up front, lug-centric in the back. It's just, I guess it lines them up better. Big thing is you want to make sure that they are completely flush against your rotor. You don't want any gaps or anything, because that's when you'll get some wheel wobble and vibration. The big thing you want to remember when getting spacers, number one, make sure it's in the right bolt pattern, obviously. But number two, make sure that you are matching the same thread pitch as your stock studs. Because what you use, these lug nuts that are on the spacers, that come with the spacers, they do not go on these studs that are right here. These lug nuts that come on the studs are the ones that actually go onto the old studs that bolted on to there. So keep that in mind. That's why you want to make sure that your lugs match up, because you cannot use your stock lugs, these big old honkers, on the inside of here. They'll fit, but you can't get a socket on them. So make sure that your thread pitch is all the same, otherwise you can't use the same lug nuts and you're going to have a rough time. 19mm socket for the smaller ones. We're not going to tighten them down super hard. We're just going to get all these lug nuts on here. We're going to zip them in with the impact, and then we'll hit them with the torque wrench. All right, all 8 of them are zipped in there. Now we'll hit them with the torque wrench. You're supposed to torque the actual studs on this truck to 140 foot-pounds. So that's what I'm torquing the spacers to. one. Now I put the wheel on. Oh, that was easy peasy. There we go.